All right, so we want to start creating some dynamic blocks, but first we're going to need to learn how to build a block. And there's a couple different ways of doing that, but first we're going to need some information in our drawing to help us create a block. And to do that, I'm just going to do the rectangle command keystrokes here. I'm going to do an REC, enter. I'm going to pick a point on my screen. In the command line, I can type D for dimensions, and then I'm just going to go with the defaults and say I want a 10 by 10 box. So I have a box in here. It's a polyline. You'll notice my properties. So it's a polyline over here, and it's on layer 0. And the importance of layer 0 here is that if an object or information, lines, arcs, text, are on layer 0 in a block, and that block is used and put on a different layer, the layers that are on layer 0 in the block take on the properties of the block layer, if that makes sense. So first off, we're going to go ahead and learn how to build a block. So there's two ways of doing it. One is you can write block. You can write it out to a separate drawing, and that's the command W block. So I'm just going to put W block in here, and you get this dialog box. And so going through this dialog box, you can pick the insertion point, which I'm just going to say I want it to be inserted by this lower left-hand corner of this box. And what you'll notice when we get into the detail itself is that the insertion point becomes 0, 0 for the block, if you will. And then the next thing that we need to do is select the information we want to include in the block. And so I'm going to pick that, and it'll change over to my screen. Let me pick that line work, and then I can retain it as just a polyline. I can convert it to the block that I'm creating, or I can delete from the drawing. So you can make your decision based on those choices as well. The other thing is that we're going to go ahead and hit this ellipsis and say we want to save it out to somewhere and give it a name. So it gives you the saving dialog box here. You can give it its own name. I'm not going to write it out to a separate drawing. I'm going to keep it inside here. So that's the first way that you can create a block. The second way is to just type in block, right? So we're going to go ahead and create a block. And to do that, this dialog pops up. And with that, we have the ability to give it a name. And I'm just going to call this box 1. And similar to the other dialog box, you have the ability to pick the point from your drawing and say the lower left-hand corner. So that's going to be its insertion point. And then you can also say that I want to select the objects in here. So I can pick that. And I can also retain it as just a polyline. I can convert it to a block, or I can delete it. I'm going to go ahead and convert it to a block, and then you get into some behaviors as far as make the block annotative or scale uniformly or allow exploding. You can turn that off, and people, when they insert that block, will not be able to explode it. Once you get into the block editor, you can go ahead and make those modifications as well. But for this exercise, we're going to go ahead and leave it alone. I'm going to make sure that this open in block editor is checked. So when we say OK, it's going to create a block in this drawing called box 1 with an insertion point of the lower left-hand corner. And we've selected the information, and then it's going to open all that information in a block editor. And so what we'll do is we'll say OK. And now you'll see that the block editor is open. We get a couple different things. The block editor ribbon shows up and gives us a bunch of capabilities here. There's also this dialog box on the left here that is the block authoring. This gives us the dynamic capabilities to add to a block. So we'll have to add parameters, and they react with actions to do different things like stretch, move. We'll get into that in the next couple of videos, but this is the interface. So I like to keep my properties dialog open, and that's just typing in CH, enter, the ch command is like change command, but it basically will bring open this properties dialog. I just dock it off to the right hand side, and that gives me the capabilities of when I grip something, it shows me what the properties are. So I know that's on layer 0, and all the other information that comes with that. The next thing is to make sure that this block authoring palette stays open, because you'll be pulling from these parameters. There's also, we'll get into geometrics, which has to do with making sure that something stays perpendicular or coincidence or parallel. You can make information have rules in a sense based on grips. And then we have some linear, and then you can also create your own parameters, and that will happen with the parameters manager. So we'll get into all that, but I just wanted to show you for this video how we create a block. So once we close the block editor, you'll notice that now when we grip this, we select this, we only have one grip, and it's because it's no longer a polyline, it is a block reference with a name of box 1. And so now we have an individualized block that is on layer 0, and there you go. So that's how you create a block. Next couple of videos will be based on utilizing the different dynamic capabilities within AutoCAD. Thanks for watching.